Hey everyone. In this episode, I was actually joined by my mother to discuss Rule 5 of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life book. And that rule is do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. We talked about a whole lot in this episode, including the most important lessons to teach your children, how those lessons can actually translate over to adulthood, the problem with Gen Z, and the problem with the whole idea of certain generations having certain problems, how to set your kids up for success in the future, and a whole lot more. So I hope you do learn something from this episode. If you do, let me know what it is in the comments. And thank you for clicking on this in the first place. So enjoy the rest. What's going on, everyone? I'm here with my mom to discuss Rule 5 of Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. The fifth rule is do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. So I kind of, from the start, when I started this series, I knew I'd want to have a parent on, not necessarily mine, but you were the most available and the only one that I really felt comfortable talking to like this. So how was your day today?
It was great. Yep. Busy. Got to do all the things I like to do and
Just cleaning.
cleaning.
Cleaning
bikes. My favorite thing.
It's a lot of fun. All right, well, we'll jump right into it. What was your favorite, or that's not the question. What is the hardest part about parenting for you? Two questions. What was the hardest part so far, and then now what it is?
I think, oh, geez, I wish I had a heads up on this. I think one of the things that was really hard about parenting is with three kids that it's three different personalities and just trying to be not even, but fair, but everybody has to be dealt with differently. That was really hard because I was always nervous that I didn't want you guys to feel resentful towards each other if I was easier on one person than another, different times, different stages and everything else. So that was hard. That was a hard part of raising three kids, especially so close in age, like you and your brother and sister.
What about now?
Now, I think parenting's really easy. I really enjoy parenting adult children. I think, it's nice seeing there's certain things, I don't have the power, I guess, that I had before, but in a way, with my personality especially, I don't really want the power, so it's kind of nice in that way. It's just more like, okay, I did what I could, and thankfully you guys are amazing, all three of you.
Oh, thanks.
So, in my completely unbiased opinion.
Yeah.
But you're all just amazing. I'm proud of all three of you, and that makes it a pleasure now,
That's good. Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot easier when we're all grown up and you don't really have to do the hands-on stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Who was the easiest child? You don't have to say me. No, you don't have to say me just because I know it's me, but.
Yes, Joe, you were the easiest. Just your disposition, though. And they have, it's not that Isabella and Jeremy were hard. It was just that you were you're such a chill kid all the time, and you don't like rocking the boat, and you complied for the most part for everything. So in that way, you were very easy to parent. You also learned to do things on the down low.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot more than us, but I get that because it's kind of my personality too when I was growing up.
Okay. So, is that the hardest part about raising me? Like, what was the hardest part about raising me specifically? Because I don't want to just talk myself up the whole time, So.
Right. The hardest part about raising you, I would think, was I don't know. I guess you just weren't hard. You weren't a hard kid to raise. You were always loving. You were, you know what I mean? Like, to me, because maybe if my values were like great grades and, that type of like worldly success, that might have made it a lot more difficult. But that was never my my goal for my kids. I just want my kids to be liked and to make the people around them happy. And I think all three of you guys do that well, and especially you. I just think that you seek that. So I don't know. Did that answer the question?
Sorta. But I think I seek that mostly because of you and Dad. Probably more you. Dad's more of the like good grades and doing well and stuff. But yeah, you have a few things written down. I know I told you we were doing this rule, and you kind of went to town on research and questions, or not necessarily questions, but just information. So, out of all the stuff you wrote down, what do you think are the three most important things that a parent should teach their kid so that other people don't dislike them?
Well, can I refer to the Jordan Peterson notes, because this is on Jordan Peterson's rule, so
Yes.
I'm going by his stuff. But he had the list of, or kind of rules on what you should teach your children. And I liked this because it was weird, because when you first said it and when I first started listening to it, it was more about teaching little children. Like, even Jordan Peterson said, by the time somebody's 4 years old, they've kind of figured out how to get what they want in the world. So a lot of what he is teaching, or whatever, like as far as what is like face value of this chapter, was more about how to raise little kids. But it really is about adults,
Yeah.
And so he does have a list of rules that you teach your kids, but it follows through so much with your adulthood. So they had, one of his was do not bite, kick, hit, except in self-defense. And I remembered when I read that, I remembered one of your friends who used to come over when you were young, and he was a biter. He's a good kid. We still see him now. I'm not going to mention names. But he used to bite all the time, and I actually called Izzy today trying to figure out, who it was, because I thought it was you, because I was like, Izzy definitely would have addressed that right away
without your help.
Right.
I didn't even remember it. But apparently it was me.
Yeah, that's what Izzy said. And so when he would bite you, it was something that was ongoing every time he came over. And he would come over. I didn't really have as much say in him coming over, because he was a child of one of Dad's friends, kind of. So maybe he'll figure this out. We like you. But
We do.
But back then, we didn't know how to fix it, because he kept biting. So one day I was like, you know what? Next time he does it, just hit him. Like, hit him in the face. But you have to make it look like an accident or like a reflex or anything. But don't be violent, like, don't do it violently, but make it, you need to fix this. And so when I read that, do not bite, kick, or hit except in self-defense, I thought of that, because it did work. It worked the first time you did it. And he never bit you again, which was, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
There's some others. I don't know if I want to read, if you want me to go through all these, but even things like learn to share so kids will want to play with you and you will be invited back. And that's important. And I actually was talking to my friend Susan yesterday. I was telling her we were doing this, and she said, I remember, because she has a Millie who's 18, and she said, I remember you used to tell me, you told all your kids, when you go to somebody else's house, you got to remember that it doesn't matter how much the kid likes you. If the parent doesn't like you, you're not going to get invited back. So you better make the parent happy somehow. So, and that was the whole thing about, when he wrote this about you will be invited back, it's more about the parents are the ones who have the power over that, or they should have the power over that. But,
yeah, that's true. So do you think it's more like a bad behaving kid? Do you think that it's more the kid's fault or the parent's fault?
Well, I think everybody's born with different dispositions, for sure. But the parent has to address it. The parent has to, and some everybody needs discipline in different areas. You know, some kids are very like your sister Isabel is very strong-willed. It's amazing. I love her strength. You know, but she needed to be parented in that way to like use the strength positively. You know.
Yeah, it's definitely different for a lot of kids, and not even just for like misbehaving kids, but even like just comparing me and Izzy, I'm a lot more of a peacemaker, and I'm more calm and agreeable
Hmm.
than Izzy is, and so it's kind of tough. So because as a parent, like you had to teach me, and Dad had to teach me how to be more disagreeable,
Hmm.
while at the same time teaching Izzy to be more agreeable and more nice and friendly, and so there's like even coming from the same parents, we just act totally different, and our nature is just so totally different that you have to
Right. And they're
parent
all great.
separately, or you have to parent differently, which is I'm sure that's not very easy, because I think that kind of means that you have to give different kids different rules,
Mhm.
sorta, not exactly, but do you think that?
Yes, I do. And it's too bad, but I mean it happens. I'm one of 6 kids, you know. So I know and I don't know how, but all 6 of us are different, you know. So
Yeah,
it's I can't imagine how my parents did it either. It was a different generation, so things were dealt with I think a little less personally between kids, but yeah, and I love with Izzy's that's the thing. She was born with this strength and everything. And even when we had issues and I'd be like, you need to be more gentle or you need to be more kind. And she would say, well, that's integrity. Like I'm just telling the truth. So it's good. There's good in that. But then there's good and bad in everything. And you need to, stare everybody through everything.
yeah. It's not like she was being malicious and being kind of upfront, and then same, I wasn't being malicious because I'm like super agreeable and just letting people do what they want. It's like it all comes from a good standpoint, even though to the extremes those can both be like negative things.
Right. Yeah.
So do you think that? Do you think this is kind of a hot take? But do you think a parent is doing a disservice to their kid if they only have one kid and you're raising an only child? Like, how do you think that a child having siblings can affect how they grow up and just how they mature?
I think I can't say it's a disservice to only have one because there's so many different reasons why people only have one child. But I know even in the bigger scheme of a person having kids in general, even one kid, having kids changes everything. It changes your whole outlook on life. It changes your own personality. It changes your values. It changes your understanding. I know personally, I think being a parent has gotten me or helped me understand God so much better and so much deeper, like, about discipline and about how things are handled. There's a lot of mirror, not, obviously I'm not as quite a good a parent as God is, but, it helps mirror things.
Yeah.
But so in that same way, I think the more, if a person has an only child, then they do tend to be the center of attention and get what they want because they don't have any competition, basically. So I would think it's better. It's more of a benefit to have more kids, but that's could be a gross generalization too.
Yeah, there's obviously exceptions. There's plenty of kids with there's plenty of kids with siblings, multiple siblings that are still very the center of attention, and same goes the other way. There's a lot of only childs that are very selfless and just know that it's not all about them. But do you
Right.
have anything else you really want to talk about here about the rules?
Well, I think it basically, I do like that all these rules, it really is about adulthood, being an adult and everything. And all these rules have to do with things that you need to do now. You need to be likable, and if you're not at any age, you're not going to get what the basic human thing that people want is acceptance. The basic human thing that people need is acceptance, as far as being able to cooperate with the other people in the world. And people, if you walk around and you're like, this person was a jerk. Every time I go to this store, this person's a jerk, and everybody's having such a bad day or whatever, then it's time to reflect on yourself and realize that more than likely it's you. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I go around like Mother Teresa or anything, but I try and make an effort to be pleasant to people. And it's very rare that I ever leave anywhere and think, wow, that person was a jerk. Like almost anybody can be. If you're nice to them, they'll be nice back in almost every case.
Yeah, even anywhere, drive-throughs, anywhere.
Right. So
people just reflect. Like that's what people do. They just reflect on how others treat them.
Right.
Like it's hard to be mean to someone who's being really nice to you.
Exactly. I mean, and it happens, but I mean, it's going to be a lot less if you're just nice. And that's what this whole thing, basically what Jordan Peterson is saying, is just walk around this world and be nice, and that the way to start that and the way to bless your child with that is to teach them when they're young. And it's not easy. What was one of the quotes he had that I really liked? I have to write it down. I'll read it because I'm so bad at remembering everything.
Me too.
But he said, he was talking about how as parents of young children, we have to do the dirty work of teaching them. And he said, you have to do the dirty work because if you don't, you will be leaving the dirty work for someone else who will be much dirtier doing it. And that's so you're saving your kids in the long run,
Yeah, it's kind of like the love of discipline. When you're young, you get disciplined, you get punished. You don't really think it's out of love. You kind of think it's... He mentioned it's like discipline isn't revenge. It's not like making things right. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's about like making sure that your kid doesn't do that in the future, because then people won't like them and they won't be treated like how you want them to be treated or how they want to be treated.
Right.
So
that's the thing. Yeah, even just growing up with the kids, and there was a big group of kids in Pelham, and the kids everybody would be together and have a good time all the time and all that. And then if somebody was acting up or something, if you don't get invited at that age when you're in elementary school or in the school system and there's a bunch of kids and you don't get invited, there's such a rejection of that. So the kid feels rejected. They're going to go one way or the other. They're going to crawl into a hole and become antisocial one way, or they're going to force themselves on people, which is also is unlikable, and then it just snowballs more and more and more and more. So you have to start it. You don't want to start a cycle when the kids are really young to be unpleasant, unkind adults that never get invited anywhere, which really, what's more important than anything than to relationships, like Dad always says, said everything.
It's important, and it's the most important in everything, in like happiness and business and
right.
Any sort of thing.
Right, because even in business, like you just mentioned, even in business, if you may not be the smartest person that walks in the door or the most skilled, but more than likely you're going to get the job if you are likable, if people know you as somebody who is going to, take initiative, do things that are beyond what you need to do and do it pleasantly, and not rock the boat, not make the drama and all that stuff too. Like there's so much too.
It's kind of a snowball effect too, where if you're at work, even if your work's not fun, but you're with coworkers that you can, even if you don't enjoy them, at least tolerate them. Mm-hmm. If you treat them with respect and you treat the customers with respect, you'll end up having a better time than if you didn't and you were just staring at the clock all day, upset, we hear all this talk about, oh, your generation. That's the problem with your generation, and or opposite. Like my generation says it a lot about boomers and even our parents. What do you think that your generation did in failing my generation? I know every generation has their flaws, so it's not like it's just your guys' fault that we're like this. Well, I mean, you can analyze what like this means, but how do you think that, or what do you think that like this is, and how do you think that the parents of these kids contributed to it?
Okay. Well, obviously speaking in general terms, because
Yeah.
I can honestly say that with all three of my kids, there's no friend who I don't like and who I don't see this in that category. But then out in the big wide world, I see just a lot of entitlement, and I think that's been a failure of my generation to this upcoming generation or this next generation that we just don't discipline like we should. And I've lacked in that too. I've just gotten lucky, and I've had dad.
I was gonna say your husband's very.
Yeah. If that was left to me, you guys would be monsters, But dad luckily had, knew that we needed that, that I needed to be kind of overruled. Yeah, I guess that sounds feminist,
very derogatory, but
it's true. You know what I mean? And it's but he knew that, and that helped a lot. That he took the reins on that, and my failures, which would have been failures, were fixed by dad's discipline that I wasn't strong enough to do.
It's the beauty of
or not willing to.
It's the beauty of two parents raising a child. And obviously, I don't hate on any single mothers or single fathers out there, because I couldn't imagine how hard that is. But it generally it is a setback for the kid, which it kind of sucks.
Yeah,
to be honest,
it's too bad. That's a tough one for sure. But most of my best friends are single mothers doing an incredible job, but it's hard. It's really hard.
I didn't even think of that. That is true.
Yeah.
A lot of your friends are. Yeah, I mean, I kind of heard this thing. I could actually see it being true, but all of the older generations had something that they had to deal with, like existentially. Like there was wars. Like pretty much every generation's had something like that. The Great Depression, but my generation doesn't have anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Life is very easy, but at the same time, it's easy to be a kid now, but it's a lot harder to become an adult, I think.
Right. That kind of reminds me of, I think, Dad has said it, but I think he heard it from Dan Bongino, who probably heard it from somebody else, but, and it's, hard times make hard men
make good times.
Make good times, or easy times, right? Is it
good time? Well, yeah.
How does it go? You say it, because I'm all messed up.
Hard times make hard men make good times make weak men make hard times. And then hard times make hard men.
So it just keeps going around. And I think that's what's happening right now. And I hate that, like, that's what's happening in the world.
Me
it's
too.
terrible. But it's an observation for sure that it's a very easy life. There's a lot. Everything's at our fingertips. That goes for us too, me and my age too. But it's, I lost my train of thought.
I mean, you're
easy.
right.
It's easy. We have easy times. Is what I'm saying.
It is easy. But I don't know why I just came to this conclusion when I said that. But it's a lot harder for kids to grow up now. It's not. We can't really afford to move out. No one can move out at 18.
Right.
Yeah. At 18, people were moving out when, like, at your age.
Mm-hmm.
Were they?
It was a lot easier for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, then again, that part is definitely, the finances are definitely different. When I went to Salem State in 1986, it was less than $1,000 to go,
Yeah.
and it's obviously, I don't know what it is now, and obviously it's a lot later, there's inflation and everything, but like,
True.
it's just, even the way everything is structured, it's not that possible. Things like that. It's going to college back then wasn't putting yourself in debt
Right.
too. And even if there's so many kids who are going to college, which it's good for some and not useless for others, you know what I mean? But even
Worse than useless.
Right. Even if you have
it's-
your parents paying for it, you're still indebted. You're indebted to something. You're either indebted to a bank, you're indebted to your parents, and
You're wasting time.
you lose your what's that word I'm looking for?
Opportunity?
Kind of independence.
Oh.
I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but like something
Freedom.
like that.
Sorta.
Yeah, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, for a lot of people in college, it's like it's not even just useless because you're wasting money and you're wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time's like one of the most important things because, I mean, obviously I am not a in the trades, but like Henry didn't go to college. I don't know what he's making, but I'd imagine in 2 years when he would have graduated from college, he's going to be making a lot more money. Maybe not a lot more, but he's going to be making definitely a substantial amount more money than most people who are getting out of college. And maybe the end goal will be the same, but he started earlier. So he's already built up however much money he has. And luckily, I know he's smart enough where he doesn't just throw it all away and spend it.
Right.
But he'll be able to move out a lot sooner than everyone else will.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think about, I've talked about it in the old pods, but what do you think about people having loans on everything? Cars, houses, couches.
Well, you know how we feel about that because we try to live debt free, and we made a decision. We, being your father, made a decision. I followed along, thankfully, and just sacrificed and did without for a long time so that we could, pay cash for our cars, not have a mortgage, keep, no loans, I mean, it's tough because you also need to have credit. It's good to have like emergency credit just in case,
Right.
and that's what we want with you guys, to have credit cards. But I think all three of you guys have been really good about absorbing that. Oh, you know?
No.
Oh.
I talked about this with Izzy the other day. That I was like, I don't know why I don't. I should get one.
Well, you kind of don't. I mean, you should because it's good for credit,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and then you end up in that like in that wheel of. But you wouldn't, because you have that's already sunk in. You do know the value of money and all that.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to point out, and I don't really know how I can put this, but living debt-free doesn't even necessarily have to do with having a high income at all. It's just living below your means, wherever those means are.
Right.
It's important to just live below them, save. I don't know. I mean, I'm only 20 years old, so I can't even really, I haven't like lived through that all. So I don't know if you have any insight on that, but.
Right. Well, as far as I think you've kind of learned, and it's good to learn, like you like the finer things in life. You definitely will drive some sort of really cool sports car eventually. And you could probably now, if you really wanted to, you could figure out how to get this crazy cool car and find a good deal on it, because that's your business, and you could have that. But I think just instinctively, that it would work against you in your life, like a long-term plan, because more than a car, you want a family and you want to be able to provide for your wife and your children and all that. And I think that's another thing that's I guess, important to parent, as far as parenting people, is to make sure that your kids know that you have to have a goal. And this goes actually for anybody, adults or anything. You get a goal, and then every single thing you do has you have to make that decision for everything. Like our chalkboard says, daily decisions determine destination. Yeah, that's been there for a long time for a reason.
Right. Chris Williamson mentioned on that I mean, this could be totally fake, but it makes sense if it is true. I know Elon Musk, when he started on SpaceX, he had every decision that went through the company. He asked this single question, and the question was, does this get us closer to Mars? And I think Jeff Bezos had one too, and it's like, is this going to make our customer experience better? Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was something like that. And it makes a lot of sense. Like especially in a large group of people, if they have that one goal, it's just, it brings everyone together. And then you can all push towards that one goal.
Right. It kind of probably saves a lot of time in their company too, a lot of decision-making time. By
That's
saying
true.
like right away, instead of being like, well, it'd be really cool if we did this commercial with, Gumby and whatever, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And instead of being like, well, is that going to get us closer to Mars?
Yeah, it's pros,
whatever.
cons. These are the pros, these are these are
Yeah.
the cons. Got to have a couple meetings about it, figure out who thinks we should do what. And it's like, no, does this get us closer to Mars? No? Okay, cut it out.
Right. Yeah.
That's a little tangent, but was it? I don't know if I've even asked you this before, but when you were younger, like say my age, did you want kids?
No. I actually kind of had, well, let me see, 20. Yeah, no, I didn't want kids. I didn't know what I wanted, but I didn't want kids. But I was never like somebody who liked to play with children. It just wasn't my thing, like Aunt June's a daycare director. She's been forever. And I don't know when it hit me that I'd like them, you know what I mean? But it wasn't something, it seems more prevalent now because I had friends who wanted kids right away and everything, but it just seems a little more prevalent now to not want them,
Yeah.
Like your generation.
There's a stat, 50, the pendulum has swung, and now 50.1% of women at age 30 do not have a kid. And it's never been like that. But
that's so sad because parenting's so hard. But like I said before, you learn so much, you grow so much. Your whole life is just deeper when you have kids because you I don't know, you just learn so much.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson says that too. He says at the very minimum, having kids is like a third of your life. Because if you count like your career as 1/3, your significant other, like that relationship as a third, kids are like another third. So if you're missing that one, it's like, well, you better have a good career then,
right?
Or a really good relationship because it's gonna be something's gonna be missing there.
But it might be that people don't want I don't know if you remember, but I know back when I was your age, like people had dogs, but they'd have I remember Doberman Pinschers and German Shepherds that were what almost everybody had for dogs. It just seemed like that. A few pit bulls here and there, but basically but they were more guard dogs and dogs that were treated like dogs, and now it's almost, it looks like, and I love those cute little, oh my gosh.
I know where
Robin
you're going
Becca's
with this.
little Parks is so
yeah.
cute. It's like this big, and I love it. But it just seems like everybody's just kind of looking for love, and you don't always get love. You get love. I think kids, obviously, they're, they grow up and they love their parents. I may not like them that much, but they always love them. But you don't get that love. You don't get that, like the not really love, like because love is action. Love is a responsibility, And I think people have dogs because they get unconditional love.
I was gonna say that, yeah.
and attention and everything else. But no offense, I don't have a dog. But
That's why I'm a cat person. I've said it before. Okay, if a dog loves you, dogs love everyone. It doesn't even mean anything. But cats are mean. So if a cat loves you, you did something right.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta earn your love right there.
Yeah. Not necessarily that kids have to earn their love from their parents, but I think parents kind of have to earn their love from their kids.
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as the I don't know what, it's not really love, like more of an adoration of their kids. You have to earn adoration and them wanting to be around you and things like that.
And be like you. I didn't mean it like...
Right.
I don't know how I worded that in a way that it's... Yeah, parents should be loved. Because a lot of parents, well, I guess all parents, especially with infants, like they're giving their kid everything. They're providing for them. They're the reason that they're even alive.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an exception there, I think, for ungrateful kids. Because there's a lot of ungrateful kids.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like a parent needs to do... Like, they have a responsibility to do a lot for their kids. And, that's what you're signing up for. So,
mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably why a lot of people my age and even a little bit older don't really want kids and don't have kids is because, well, two reasons. I think because of that, because there's a lot of responsibilities. And then I think, actually, there might be three. But I know the second reason is probably just because people can't even financially support themselves to move out and live on their own. So how are they supposed to provide for a whole other human?
Right. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It just popped into my head now, so I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to verbalize this. But I wonder if part of like we were talking about the generation and how my generation tends to have been treated their children almost too well, so the kids feel so entitled now. But I know when I do something nice, I honestly don't look to have somebody go, oh, thank you so much, you're awesome. I really don't care. But if it's the opposite and there's no appreciation whatsoever and it's just kind of like, that's, of course, you know what I mean? Of course you would do that for me. I deserve it, Then it turns to resenting the kids, you know what I mean? And then, so, okay, let me figure this out. So if somebody in my generation treats their child with all this, gives them everything they want all the time, and that child ends up being entitled, eventually my generation is going to start resenting the fact that now their child, the product of their own behavior, has made them feel entitled. So then all of a sudden, instead of having this healthy parent-child relationship, now all of a sudden the parent who made this child the way they are now resents the kid. So the parent lashes out and goes, it's so hard being a parent, and they get all, because I do see that. Like you see it on whatever social media, you see it wherever. But so then your generation gets this message that parenting is hard and that there's nothing good really that can come of it. All you're doing is giving, but you're not happy doing it. You know what I mean? So I could see that. And maybe that's why it's, again, more of this other like vicious cycle that's happening right now. And
so there's 4 reasons, I guess.
4 reasons.
No, there's probably more. There's probably a ton.
Yeah.
When you were talking about that, it kind of reminded me of, I don't know which part of that rule, but he did talk about it in that rule, that Dr. Skinner guy, how he taught pigeons how to play ping pong, and they didn't play well. I think they just hit the ball back and forth, not like no net or anything. But he mentioned that Dr. Skinner was very good at teaching these pigeons how to do like whatever he wanted them to do. And a lot of it was punishment when they did wrong, but a lot of it was reward. But the more important part about the reward was that the reward was big enough where it mattered and it affected the way the pigeons think. But at the same time, it wasn't too big where future rewards didn't really mean anything or didn't mean anything. And that's probably what is going on with whatever my generation is, that we've been given, like, we're just given so much that when we're not given so much, it almost feels like something's being taken away from us.
Mm-hmm.
When like usually that should just be the default, and it always has been. Like,
Right.
kids have always been expected to do chores and work on the lawn and, you know, do all that stuff. And now no one does it. So when people have to do it, they feel like, this doesn't seem right.
Right. Like, why all of a sudden now do I have to do this?
Yeah, it's like
or whatever.
that's not my job. But it always should have been.
Right. The thing we were, I was just talking to Uncle Mike and Dad the other night. We were talking just about what kids don't know what to do anymore. Uncle Mike was saying, you know, it's what would these kids do if anything ever happened and they have all of a sudden they have this house if we're not around? Would they know what to do if the boiler ran out of oil, or would they know how to fix the lawnmower, or even know that the lawnmower needed to be fixed? And like all these just day-to-day things that
Yeah, I think it's
there's
even
no
worse than that
skills.
too.
Yeah.
I don't think half the people could start a lawnmower.
Right. I mean, you know, and thankfully you have a really good attitude. You're kind of a slave boy around our house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Like you really, and you've embraced it very
well, it's because you
nicely.
guys have imprinted that on us, and not even in a bad way, but like, I'm glad.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, like, when I really appreciate when there's not anything for me to do.
Right.
And at the same time, I guess very recently, or not super, but probably in the past year or two, I've just been really into learning.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I just want to learn a lot and know a lot. So,
Yeah.
and I guess that it's kind of weird that never hit me until after high school.
Mhm.
Because I wish it hit me before high school.
Would have been nice with that beachy
So, yeah,
tuition.
it would have been nice if I had that mindset in high school, but
Yeah, it would have
I
been.
didn't. But it's probably more useful now than it was
It
back
is. The
then.
life skills are definitely important. Even things like when all three of you got your licenses, Dad taught you all to change a tire on a car. And I remember there was pushback on each of you. You know, you're just like, ugh. First of all, even Jordan Peterson, one of his examples, he said when he was trying to teach his son to eat, you know, because he was in a phase where he wasn't eating his food. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And he said, and I sat down, had the time, like he had that time set aside. He knew he was going to take that time. And that is important to know, like there is going to be that time that you need to spend teaching. You can't just be like, you want your kid to be this way, so they're just going to be that way. Like the parents have to do their part too. But I remember when Izzy got her license and Dad said, I'm going to teach her how to change a tire because you never know. You never know if she's going to need it. And sometimes people aren't around or whatever, and there's cell phones now. So that's not as big a deal, but still you don't want especially your girl out somewhere stranded, not being able to know what to do and depending on somebody else, because not everybody's good out there.
Yeah.
But I don't think she had too much pushback, but I'm sure that at that point she was like, that's the last thing I want to do is learn how to change a stinking tire,
Mm-hmm.
But she has changed tires. She had to change her own tire when she was out somewhere, and she's changed other friends' tires, and she loved it. It was empowering.
It is. It's really cool.
And it's, to have a skill that that a lot of people your age wouldn't even consider. They'd be like, I'm going to call AAA or something. You know what I mean?
You get 3 free passes a month, I've heard, with AAA. So
Oh, really?
if you have AAA, I think, yeah. So
But it's so good to be able to help somebody else, how empowering is that? So the parents are robbing their kids, and that would have been me. So I'm not trying to be like, oh, my kids know how to change a tire. It has nothing to do with me. It wouldn't have even crossed my radar to teach you guys to do anything like that. So
the bar has never been lower.
that's a good way of putting
It's
it.
true, and it's not the best thing for society, but it's good like individually because you just have to do something like you just have to be different in just such a minuscule way to stand apart from everyone and
Right.
actually become someone like special and someone useful.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that with everybody thinks AI is going to take over everything and all that, and in a good way. And there's going to be a lot of good that comes with AI. But AI is never going to be able to change your tire, unless there's like huge robots eventually or whatever going down the highway or whatever. But like, there's a lot of things that AI is not going to refinish a wood floor, and there's just skills. Or would humans even want to give that up? The creativity of hard work labor. Like when Izzy had her floors done the other day, I was thinking, this man is a hard worker. This man and his partner, he learned an amazing skill. He is autonomous. He has so much more power over his life than somebody who works in a company for anything else. He can pick and choose a schedule as long as he does realize that he has to work and is willing to work. But he does have some sort of flexibility with that. And I'm like, his overhead is nothing. He had a big sander thing.
Everything he needs is in his truck.
Right.
Like,
It's
or in
all
his
there.
van.
And everything else is in here, and his skill and his willingness.
Mm-hmm.
But just the skill of using his hands and his willingness to do it. People, it's like frowned upon now, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think it's all about hard work. It just seems like with that, when I was looking at him and thinking he's going to have, you can tell when you talk to him, he's happy, he's at peace, he just seemed joyful to me, in just a short interaction, that he really loved what he did and everything. And all that started, I'm sure, from the way he was raised and his parents saying, you need to learn a skill, you need to do what you do well, you need to show up on time, you need to do excellent work and everything. And I think parents, a lot of people, and not even just this generation, but along the way, that you're almost afraid, like people are almost afraid to put that expectation into their kids anymore. Like you don't want to even disturb them enough to be like, do your best. You know what I mean? Like maybe make good grades and, get an A or whatever, but that's not necessarily doing your best.
Right.
Right,
that is true.
That's conforming.
A lot of people get good grades almost effortlessly. Mm-hmm. And I guess I wasn't like that. But I was for the beginning part of my schooling, but it's true. Like, I definitely didn't try my best, but there's some people who probably didn't try their best who got all A's. So I don't think anyone really tries their best at anything, really. And
I don't know. I might have to push back on that a little bit. When you think, there's
a lot of
definitely.
people.
Look at Johnny as an example.
Okay. I think when it comes to when other people have expectations on them, I actually don't know if people would try harder with their own expectations on them or with others. Because I know a lot of people with their own expectations on them, they don't try as hard because they know that's kind of an excuse. If you don't do well, I didn't really try anyway, so it's not like I failed. If you try your hardest, if you really put your all into something and you fail at it, that's discouraging. That's the worst. So I think a
But
lot
also good life lesson.
it is.
But
So why do you? Johnny's very different from a lot of people, though. So
yeah.
do
Well,
you think
even Dad, like I think he does
he's also very
things
different?
with excellence. But it is obviously, I think it has to do with if you want to be good at something too. Like, I'm not saying Johnny does everything great and, Dad puts his all into everything. He doesn't. If I had him, I don't know, shop for the pants or something like that, he'd probably wouldn't put
True.
his effort into it,
That is
or
true.
anything like that. So it is something like that. But I think it's a good. There are people who will try, like do their best. It's you got to think about the motivation behind it. But
Right.
we're all flawed human beings, I guess.
I think people try their best at stuff that they enjoy, probably. Other than that, I mean, unless it's a very high stakes situation, I don't think people really do for the most part. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but
Yeah.
even for me doing this podcast for a while, I just didn't make it a priority, and I was like, I don't necessarily think it's because I was going to use it as an excuse if I wasn't getting views and stuff. And obviously, I'm still not getting like a ton of views, but now I'm committing to trying my hardest, at least for the next like 6 months. And so, if I fail, I don't know. I'll probably feel like crap about it, but
I don't know that it's a failure no matter what, because you don't know who's getting what. And I mean, obviously, I'm your mother, and I almost have to say this, but it's genuinely true. That I don't know. First of all, I see you grow a lot from this. Just that the things that you have to do ahead, that deciding what you're going to talk about, having friends, and really thoughtfully considering who you're going to have on for what. There's a lot to this. There's a lot of work to it. All the edit. Look at all the stuff you've learned. So a lot of times, and as you go through life and you start looking back and you go, oh, well, that I could list, well, I'm not going to, but I could list my failures in life. You know what I mean?
Right.
But every failure has sent me on another, I can see where it veered me off into another place where I belong. I really feel like I am where I belong. I feel like I'm in God's will for the most part, doing what I was put here on this planet at this time to do. And so even this, if you get 17 views, ever, then there's still so much. And this is just part of this path that you're on. But you are learning an incredibly huge amount of things. And I've seen a lot of growth in you in so many different areas, and I'm proud of you.
Thanks a lot. Typical mom.
I know.
No, I'm
so
kidding.
Cheesy, but it's true.
Yeah,
it really is.
Well, failure. The reason it's all so memorable is because that failure is like when you learn the most. And I know I didn't necessarily mean it like that, like because there's a lot of different metrics of success when it comes and failure when it comes to anything, but especially this podcast, like views is definitely, it's such a visible success or failure depending on what it literally says. YouTube says how this ranks compared to my other videos. So it's like, it's such a visible metric that I see it as one of the main successes or failures. But then there's, well, how did this obviously affect me as a person? How did I grow from this? Is there anyone else who grew from this? Because that's, in the end, that's why I'm doing it.
Right.
It's for other people to hear what I already know. And more recently, I've realized that it's actually for me to kind of talk through and learn what I actually think. Because I heard this from other podcasts, and it really makes sense to me now. Is like when you're talking through something, it's almost like you're thinking. in your head about it, or you are thinking in your head, but when you're thinking out loud and talking to someone, it's like you're exploring it and you're learning a lot about what you think about certain topics. So that's in pretty much every way a success every time I do this.
Right.
The only, and then that means that the success or failure, it depends what I care about. So I do care about my growth in this, but that's not as visible as the views. So generally, I kind of view it, and I don't even view it as black and white as this podcast was a success. This one was a failure. Because it's not really like that. And I've actually been pretty good with my mindset about it, where I just see it as growth, like it's a growth period. I'm just starting, so it's not like it's a lot of famous people and YouTubers, and I don't know if this goes for everyone, and obviously it doesn't go for everyone, but every industry. But a bunch of YouTubers, like, their views go way up, they go super viral, super popular, and then they start going down. I'm at the bottom, so I can't go down. And it's kind of sad, but it's a good way to see it, because it makes me just optimistic about the future, because pretty much at this point, only more people can start seeing what I'm doing, and there's not really a floor.
Right.
I'm at the floor, so it's not like I can't go lower than that. So it sounds like sad when I say it like that, but I really see it as a positive thing, because it makes it so much easier to do this, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm positive that more people are going to see this than the last one. And even if not, then the general trend is upward.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of oh gosh, something went in my head and then left again. I was going to say, I know what I was going to say. So you have changed a lot. If you went back to your first podcast, you'd be like, you're just not as comfortable.
I have. It's cringy. I don't like it.
I haven't for a while, but I imagine, because you get better and better and better and more you're fine tuning each time you're doing this. So you might be like, I'm only getting a certain amount of views or anything. If it's your dream to have a ton of views, if that's what you want in life, which it could be, I think it could benefit a lot of people, But it's almost like with church at the Well, it's a small church and they rent a space, and I talked to one of the girls there and I said, I wish we'd just get a building, why isn't that more of a priority to get a building? And obviously that's what they're working on, but they're doing it with the steps and everything. And I'm just somebody who's like, well, if we had a building, then we could get so many more people in here and they'd hear the word, and you know what I mean? And we could help people more in Nashua and all that stuff and all these things. And she was so gentle with me, but basically she said, well, if there's all these people if all of a sudden people come in droves, then we just have these leaders. We just have a few leaders because we're a small church. So if we get a bunch of people come in, then we can't serve them the way they need to be served, and that could hurt their faith.
First reputation,
right? Yeah, first impression, But it could, but not necessarily even for just the Well, which obviously I would love to see a ton of people there and have it grow. I love the priorities of the leadership there and everything. But they could walk out and be like, this isn't a benefit. Like being learning this or being a Christian isn't a benefit. Nobody's helping me. Nobody followed up when I said I needed prayer on something or whatever. So anyway, as that goes, and I was like, oh, I get that now. And she's like, well, there's 2 pastors, and if we have a ton of people, we need to build up the leadership. We need to build up like the infrastructure. We need to build that up so that we can do this right. And in your way right now, what I'm making the connection it's loose, but it actually, to me, makes complete sense is that right now you're building up your infrastructure, and I believe the well is going to be big and do big things. And I believe that you're going to be big and do big things, because I know your heart, and I know that you're not doing this because you want to be this famous face. I honestly believe that you want to do this because you want people to think deeper. You want people to have richer lives, and you want to get to know other people and what they think too.
Mm-hmm.
But just to better this universe that you're in at this time,
That is what I want.
But-
And I hope my priority or my mindset doesn't shift where all I care about is fame.
Well, we'll just
Yeah. One thing that I heard from this guy, and he's pretty famous, but he said to beginners like podcasters and anyone really that's just like, I'm doing a podcast, right? And let's say 60 people watch it. In terms of online, that's not very big numbers at all. Even 500 is not like a huge number when it comes to videos online. But if I think about it as 500 people sitting in a room and listening to this conversation, and they're right there, I would definitely put in all this work to do it every time.
right.
So
yeah.
even for, I don't know, 30 people,
Mm-hmm.
I would put all this time in and effort in for these people to hear what we're saying. So that's such a good way to see it. Because online, things are skewed. TikToks have 5 million views and 10 million views. It's just not really realistic. I mean, maybe at some point, but that's a lot of people. That's
Right.
stadiums and stadiums worth of people. Just think about people. If 40 people see what you're doing, think about those 40 people in a room. That's a lot of people.
Right. Who
So-
just put their time aside
Yes,
to listen to what you have to say.
it is.
And what you're saying, yeah, and yeah, it's more of like a niche category or something like that. And really, I mean, some of the stuff that goes viral with these things, I mean, there's a lot of good things like Jordan Peterson, and there's a bunch of people who put out valid good things and have a lot of followers. But there's a lot of crap out there too, and with 5 million views. I mean,
Right.
the whatever podcast,
Yeah.
which is kind of funny.
I don't even know what to. That's
I
a
hate to
good.
admit
That's a
it,
good thing and a negative thing,
but-
though. I think
Yeah,
that
that's
points out a
true.
lot of
It kind of
flaws.
shows, it's kind of a reverse psychology almost.
It is.
But like there's a lot of trash out there that gets 5 million views. You know what I
Right.
mean? And don't be trash. There's,
Yeah,
why would
I
you want to
won't
be
be.
trash? That's 5 million people who see you as trash. You know,
Yeah.
and you're multiplying the trash.
They might not think you're
So-
trash, but they get no useful information from you at all. So.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Like I said, again, I'm going to try and get these out at least once every 2 weeks. So you guys are blessed, and you're getting them 2 in 2 weeks. It takes a lot of effort for me to do these. So I appreciate everyone who watches. Again, thanks for coming on. You've been a great parent to me.
Thank
My
you.
entire life.
You have to say that because I make you
don't.
breakfast every
I
morning.
don't. I don't have to say that. But you didn't have to say that you make me breakfast every morning.
I
either.
know, actually, that kind of ruins our whole Jordan Peterson thing about.
I should wake up and make my own breakfast.
He's very entitled. He makes me make his breakfast every morning.
That is true. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe. It means a lot to me. It's free. It takes half a second. But I'll see you next time for Rule 6.